The moment the entire basketball world, except for maybe Laker fans, has been waiting for, and that is Nico Harrison is finally on his way out of the organization. He is about to get the boot, and they hit him with this is pretty interesting, actually. This is not official, so that's why I'm saying about to. He actually got hit with a we need to talk text, and they have a meeting scheduled, and he's expected to be fired during that meeting. And there's also a player meeting as well that's going to happen afterwards with ownership. So that's all pretty interesting. The tea leaves are there. The rumbles had really started to pick up over the last couple of days with Tim McMahon saying it's not a if, it's a when he gets fired, etc., which is absolutely scathing. We're going to talk about that in today's video. Also, where the Mavs go from here. But if this is your first time here on the Basketball Bulletin, make sure you do subscribe here as Trevor Lane and I keep you guys informed with the information around the around the NBA as it comes out. It's 7 a.m, man. I may have some slip ups, but regardless, though, per Shams, the Dallas Mavericks and owner Patrick Dumont are expected to fire general manager Nico Harrison at a 10 a.m. Central Time meeting on Tuesday. Sources tell me and Tim McMahon the Mavericks are firing Nico Harrison 9 months after the jarring and stunning Luka Doncic trade, a move for which Dumont took accountability and accepted as a mistake in a courtside interaction with a fan on Monday night. That last part is scathing. He said, yeah, we made the wrong decision. So last night there was a game, and that was pretty interesting. Unfortunately, Cooper slips on the inbound pass. It is what it is. But Dumont was in attendance. He actually arrived early. And once again, the fire Nico chants rained down from the stands, and it's just too loud, right? This is frankly something that was too loud the second after the trade was done. I keep going back to the fan reaction. Obviously, there was an expectation that fans would be upset, but Nico said himself he didn't expect the backlash to be that bad, which tells me that he was out of touch from the beginning with how beloved Luka was in Dallas, right? And is still in Dallas, right? So they had these guys bringing coffins to the arena, all this other stuff. He got instant boos. He couldn't go out in public. The dude was hiding in the tunnel. I mean, if you're ownership, you see this, right? You just expect this to die down. It certainly wasn't going to. And it definitely wasn't going to as we get into this NBA season, right? The whole offseason, we get into this NBA season. Luka's playing phenomenally. He just dropped like 38 points yesterday, and that brought his averages down, which is crazy. Anyway, he's playing phenomenally, and AD has played in roughly a fifth of the games he's been available to play in as a Dallas Maverick. I mean, what do you do with that? Like, there's no way that's okay, and obviously it just gets worse as this just doesn't make any sense, right? In terms of the package and all that stuff that the Mavs got back, but just trading Luka in general. You don't see teams trade a 26-year-old generational superstar. That just does not happen, right? And there's a number of different reasons that I've seen, whether it's like Nico's ego got in the way, conspiracies of this and that. There's so many different things, but ultimately Nico was the guy that pulled the trigger on this with Dumont's approval. We can't let Dumont, completely skate under the bus on this one and just not take any accountability for it. But he does take some accountability on this, I will say. But these guys made this decision and they didn't talk to anybody. It doesn't seem like Kid was in the know on this. They didn't shop Luka at all. They just did this and had this trade go through. And it was all pretty shady, I would say, the way it went down. And that's not to say just because it was so secretive is what I should say. Not shady, secretive. It was all very secretive. Nobody knew about it aside from basically ownership and the GMs and all that stuff. And again, they didn't shop. Nico had a clear vision that he wanted. Probably the wrong vision. I think we could say that. But he had a guy that he really wanted through Nike connections, all that stuff, and a phenomenal player, top 75. Like, I don't want to undersell him, but AD comes here and he's just instantly hurt, right? He tried to play through an injury, gets hurt. That takes him out for a prolonged period of time. He comes in this season having eye surgery, he's overweight. It just is what it is, right? So all these other things are happening here. So Nico, yeah, unfortunately, he's got to go. And, they were not expect this is so much worse if they don't get Cooper flagged. Now, I know that the entire landscape is, this was rigged. They traded Luka and then they were given Cooper flag. But you have to go back in time. They were not expecting to lose Kyrie. They were not expecting to lose AD. They were not expecting to have those things happen. And for Josh Giddey to hit a freaking buzzer beater against the Lakers that actually swung that entire thing. You could maybe say another win did it, but I'll just go to that one because that was an emphatic win. But there were so many things at play here that ultimately worked in their favor. And ultimately, they jumped all the way up. So that there was no way that was part of the plan at all, because you just can break it down that way logically. But if they don't land Cooper Flag, it gets so much worse. But the good news is there's actually something here, I think, that can be salvageable, right? So we're going to talk about that and what the next group will have to do in terms of the interim front office that's going to be coming in.
Ever hear the Sleeper app? Here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. Live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats. A news feed. This is so important for me. You can get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams. A real-time chat to allow you to engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So download the #1 sports app today. Experience it for yourself. When you use promo code Bulletin, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And by the way, they do have a phenomenal promo going on right now as well. Free $20 entry. Go check that out. No deposit required. $20 entry for free. Go check them out. Use the link in the description down below, and that promo code is Bulletin.
All right, so I just wanted to get to this because I went on a very long rant there, and you guys were just staring at Nico's face. But it's going to be one of the last times, man, because when he's gone, I don't expect to ever really see or hear from Nico again. I've been saying that. Anyway, especially not in Texas at all, period. Mavericks owner Dumont and Nico Harrison are meeting this morning at a subsequent meeting for Dumont with the team's players is also expected today. There have been a push among some of the organization's influential voices to try to bring back former Harrison advisor Dennis Lindsay from Detroit, sources tell Sideline, but Dallas is first expected to install an interim front office after Harrison's departure. So I wanted to talk about this. Also, bringing back Lindsay would be awesome. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this because the interim group is going to come in here. And firstly, I don't expect them to come in and just start making sweeping moves and just do a full-on fire sale, this and that. You know, I think there's something here. They are among the worst teams in the NBA. Last I checked, it's funny, ironic actually. They were third in defense prior to last night's game and about like in the 29th range or so for offense. So, hey, Nico got the defense he was wanting. They just were not able to score worth a damn. So if you can't score, you just, unless you're holding teams to like 80 points, you're just not going to win very often. And so they're 3-8 right now, right? So, but the point is that like obviously you have Cooper Flag on this roster. Obviously you've got some other young pieces or into entering their prime pieces like a PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. I wouldn't expect all of these guys to be here. You've got Max Christie. Jaden Hardy is okay. I've seen mixed opinions on him from the fan base. You have some younger pieces that you could potentially develop like a Ryan Nemhard. And Prosper as well. There's something here, but unfortunately I do wonder if ultimately, whenever the permanent GM gets in, they just don't have to start trading off these older guys, AD, Kyrie, and Clay. Now, again, I'm not expecting them to do that immediately. I do expect this season to ride out. The good news is that the Dallas Mavericks actually do have their own draft pick this year. So if by chance they wind up not being able to recover from this, which by the record, I believe I was listening to the Locked On Mavs guys, and teams that have started this badly have like a 14% chance to make it to the playoffs period. And it's even worse for Western teams. So it's unlikely they do anything at any point because you just are digging yourself such a nasty hole. You've got to go on such a win streak. And is it possible? Absolutely, right? But regardless, though, I would say it's unlikely and very unlikely at that. So I would think that if they are not able to do that, they would wind up with a very high draft pick this year, which in a good draft, once again, you take that piece, you couple that with Cooper, who is freaking 18 years old, by the way. Cooper is 18, right? Anyway, you couple that with them, a couple of other guys that are young on this team, like a D-Live or Max Christie. And I think in a few years, you could be a really good team. But it's just really unfortunate because Nico is a guy that built a roster that was a championship contender. They made it all the way to the finals. I can't let that go understated, right? Nico built that team. He was a general manager of this team for several years. He watched and built this thing over time. and surrounded their superstar in Luka with pieces that they needed to that fit perfectly around him, I might add, that they needed to make it all the way there, right? And if Kyrie isn't banged up, if Luka isn't banged up, maybe things could go a different way. Now, obviously, I don't say that to take anything away from the Celtics. They were phenomenal. But ultimately, those guys underperformed. I would say Kyrie especially in the finals. Luka was fine, but Kyrie especially underperformed in the finals. And ultimately, like, regardless, though, they made it to the finals. That's not a team that you blow up. And I think you could argue that going into last season, with the addition of Clay and some of the other moves that they made, they were actually better. That's the thing about it, is I think you could argue they were actually better prior to that trade. So ultimately, I do think that that is something that is pretty crazy for this team and this overall roster. But I think that Nico, he made a decision and has to kind of live with that. And
just jumping in.
What's up, bro?
It finally happened.
Right.
Man. I'm glad I was able to catch you here and jump on here for this. Nico Harrison fired. Donnie, I mean, this is maybe not unexpected, but did you see that moment last night? The Mavs, they lost a tough one to the Bucks, where Nico was sitting in the bit, like just staring off into space as the arena was chanting "Fired Nico."
Yeah, I did actually. He actually showed up to the arena even like a couple hours early, and apparently he admitted that they made a mistake last night to a fan in the arena as well, trading Luka. But yeah, you had to know that he was there in person. They were chanting the "Fire Nico," and then he was just like, "Yeah, we got to get rid of this guy. We just can't do this anymore."
Yeah, you knew it had to be coming. And this is the right decision for the Mavs. And here's I think the big question here now moving forward. There's already going to be talk about who's going to replace him, but now this gives you the flexibility to do whatever you need to do, right, on the moving forward. And if that means burning it down, you could do it. Nico couldn't do that. He can't do that because he's the one who pushed all the chips into the center of the table on Anthony Davis and Max Christie and trying to build around defense and win right now and all of that stuff and trading away Luka. There was no way for him to pivot this franchise away, nor do you want him, if he messed everything up so bad by trading Luka, nor do you want him to be making the big decisions for this team now if you do decide to pivot into a rebuild. Because right now, where this team's at in the Western Conference, they're already digging themselves a hole. It's very possible that in a month and a half, 2 months, that the best case scenario for them is to tank, particularly when they've got control of their draft pick for this year and then won't have it for a little bit after that. So if that's the decision that needs to be made, that, hey, we need to tank this year, try to get a nice high draft pick again to pair with Cooper Flagg, and maybe that puts Anthony Davis out there on the trade market. Maybe it puts Kyrie Irving out there on the trade market. They need to have the ability to pivot that direction if and when that's the correct move. And Nico is not the guy to do that, nor is he the one that could do that because of the position that he was in after going all in for that trade.
Yeah, I was saying that I thought that, with the interim group, I do wonder if they would be willing to come in and just make big sweeping moves, especially if they don't have that long-term security in that role. And ultimately, like I was saying, that there are several pieces on this roster. Like Cooper's 18 years old. Like you have a really long window with him. I would expect him to get much better. You've got young pieces on his team like a Lively, like a Christie. And now, obviously, that doesn't amount to Luka. You would rather have Luka, but what's done is done. But there is a pathway, I think, for them to be really good in a few years. But I do wonder if an ownership or a interim GM or front office group would come in and say, you know what, let's trade AD, let's trade Kyrie, let's trade Clay, let's get all these pieces out of here, let's bring in some draft capital, let's do this and that. I just wonder about that. But I don't know if they need to do that with the health of these guys. As sad as it is, they don't need to do that, really. I don't think to wind up as one of the worst teams in the NBA this season. They're already
and look, they don't necessarily have to tear the whole thing down. You just want to have, if that winds up being, because I don't think they're at a place where they can make that decision just yet. But if that in the coming month plus, as we get into NBA trade season, if that becomes the clear path forward for this team, you need to have the ability to pivot that direction if need be. Now, Mark Stein reporting that Anthony Davis's agent, Rich Paul, has still established a strong relationship with Mavs owner Patrick Dumont since the February trade. They're in regular contact. So, again, we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that AD is getting moved now or anything like that. You just want to have the ability to do that if you need to.
Optionality.
There it is. Optionality. There it is. Everybody take a shot. Optionality. Rob Pelinka's favorite word. There it is. Absolutely. That's what they wanted here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's still, if they still opt to take that route with this team and just say, okay, this season is a wash. You know, we were missing Kyrie for half the season. AD couldn't be healthy this year, which, by the way, AD has played in like 1/5 of the available games since becoming a Maverick, which is crazy because if you remember going back to the end of his Laker tenure, we were talking about how the street clothes thing wasn't a viable thing anymore. He had been one of the most durable players over that stretch. He had played in like the vast majority of the games he was available to play in, including playoffs. But coming here, he hasn't been available for them, and he's overweight now. He still has seemingly lost his. But you could say that this season's a wash if they're not able to recover, which you probably wouldn't want to at this point. You want to get that high pick and then go into next season and just run it back one more time, see what that looks like. But I think you can make moves on the perimeter, like maybe Clay is somebody that you could potentially sell off and get a better piece there because he's not. He may be this now, but I tend to think that the history of shooting he has means that he'll bounce back, but he may just be this now. So you might try to sell him. I don't know. But again, who would want him if he's this just indefinitely? But I think that there's a pathway for them if they decide to do that too. They could be a fun, interesting team. They could even be better than they are this year. Maybe they get a good playmaker in the draft. Now, those guys typically take a couple years to develop and get going, but maybe you can find somebody else in the trade market or on the free agency market as well. There's some good playmakers out there this offseason. So there's just a few things they could do, but ultimately I think that they really just needed to get rid of Nico. This is something that's like 8.5 months too late.
Yeah, it was hanging over this franchise, no question. And I'll tell you what, just scrolling through Mavs Reddit real quick, I was looking for this, but they are celebrating over there. They're having a good time. But key stats comparison since the trade: 36 games played for Luka, 14 for AD total for the team, 27 games missed. Now I don't know when this was created, but 954 points scored by Luka, 284 by AD. Luka shooting better from the field, more rebounds for Luka, more assists, more steals, less blocks. AD's got that in his column. But then look at the money. They didn't want to pay Luka. Luka's got 3 years, 161 million on his deal. 3 years, 174 million for Anthony Davis.
The only thing about this that's a little bit unfair is Luka was out and returned from an injury, while the opposite was true for AD. Well, he had missed a little bit of time right then and there, but he came right back as well. But he had mostly been available that season, so he gets an injury that takes him out for the rest of the season at that point, damn near. So.
Well, and on top of that, it's, when we're obviously this is Mavs fans, we're continuing to pile on and all of that with graphics like this that are going out there. But we also have to remember that Luka was eligible for the Supermax, and that was what they didn't want to get. So the contract that Luka got from the Lakers is not what the Mavs were going to be expected to offer Luka. I'm not saying it was the right decision to not offer. They obviously should have, but it's a different level of max salary when we're talking about what the Lakers could have offered Luka and did offer him compared to that Supermax deal.
Yeah, so was it the Mavs didn't want to do it, or was it just Nico?
I mean, it has to be ownership too. Like when we talk Patrick Dumont, like he's part of that too. He could have said, "Oh no, fans love Luka. Why would I trade this guy when he's the one who's putting butts in seats? Of course, we'll give him the Supermax." And then the whole thing is dead. And that's it.
Yeah. That's one thing I brought up too, is like, it's I don't want to let him just kind of go blameless, because there's blame to go around for sure. And I think that he just didn't know, right? And the thing is that's unfortunate is, and this is something I was saying, is Nico was there for several years. He built this team from the ground up and turned it into a title contender, right? He surrounded Luka with those long, rangy players like a Derek Jones. He put Derek Lively there, Gafford. He surrounded Luka with shooters. He surrounded Luka with another co-star in Kyrie. In fact, he had several guys in there, like Jalen Brunson, all these other guys. He actually built a very competent roster that made it all the way to the NBA Finals and fit exactly what they needed. But then somehow, some way, he just decides to make this crazy, insane swerve. So it's not like he's not a competent GM. And so at least up until that point anyway, right? Like you're looking at it like, okay, this guy, he has a really good track record up to this point, so I'm going to trust what he has to say, right?
He was a guy who put together an NBA Finals team, but then didn't believe in what he had. and decided to blow it all up, even though he just got to the finals. It's crazy. And so this is why Dallas is celebrating right now. And now the air can lift over this franchise. And what's done is done. They're not getting Luka back, but they can now move forward into the future, whatever that looks like, and figure things out from here. Like I said, Mavs Reddit's going crazy. Mavs Twitter's going crazy. They're all excited. Nico is gone. Nico, as I said before, Nico, hop in your car, take the long drive, head west, come out to LA. You will not pay for a single meal. You are very welcome in Los Angeles.
I opened the video saying this is the news that the entire basketball world has been waiting for, except for Laker fans. Because it's true. Laker fans are they're very appreciative, man.
Could you imagine if the first move for the next GM is some type of a trade with the Lakers?
Oh no, that you can't do that. That's just terrible. Options.
Yeah,
you can't do it.
Rob Pelinka's number does not exist anymore. To whoever comes in, like they can't do
teams
it.
Always do those regular check-ins to see how guys are doing. If Rob is calling, just don't even answer. If you're the new guy, just don't even answer.
Exactly. All right, Donnie, I'm sorry to jump into your show here. I saw the news and went, whoa, okay, Nico fired. Let's go.
No, you're good. We had already covered everything. I was about to end it, so no worries.
Cool.
Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here. Let us know what you guys think about the entire situation here with Nico from the ground up. Obviously, this is warranted. Should it have happened sooner? What is next for the Mavs? Let us know in the comments. We appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.